Supposed to be a surprise, right? Microphone's on?
Yes. Speak.
Pardon?
Test your microphone.
I just did. So you all are ready to rock and roll? Okay, that's me right there. And I've never done any public speaking, and this is mostly pictures. And the pictures are worth 1,000 words. Oh, I wanted to thank some people first. My wife, Pam Barefoot, who took most of the photographs. Also, Paul Cleveland. Betsy Anderson, who coordinates all these things. And Debbie Itani, who helped us out today. Okay, that's it. This is one of the concrete ships that was built during the Second World War. We got a bunch more pictures of them.
Does he need to have
He
his...
needs to put the mic on the other side of his collar.
What happened?
Okay.
And as you know, most of the steel was being used to build battleships and tanks. So steel in that boat's probably only 15% of the weight of it. So anyhow, okay. Those nine ships were built in Tampa, Florida at the beginning of the war, mostly for training and storage. Okay. And they've been scuttled at Kiptopeke to protect the ferry that comes from Virginia Beach to Kiptopeke. And you can see where the ferry comes through, and there's where it stops right there. And these are the names of all the ships. And there's the, right there. Okay.
It's a state park now. It used to be where the ferry took people from the eastern shore of Virginia to Virginia Beach and Norfolk, but now it's called Kiptopeke State Park, and you can camp there, and people go fishing around these old concrete ships.
Okay, this is where the ferry came in, and then it's used just for a boat ramp.
Off in the distance on the horizon, you can see the concrete ships.
Oh yeah, you can see them out there. And one of the things that people always ask me is, does a concrete boat float? And the answer is no. These boats were scuttled on purpose, okay. And these boats, how old were that, 19?
They were put there in 1948.
Yeah, but they were built in 1942, so.
Yeah.
Built, okay. Now, the hulls on these boats are about 6 inches thick. And much heavier rebar was used than I used, obviously.
Jim, didn't they float at one time, though, right?
Pardon?
Concrete ships floated at one time.
Of course.
Before they were shut.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though they're made of concrete, they still float.
Well, battleships are made of steel, okay? The Iowa-class battleship weighed about 50,000 tons. And a cubic foot of steel weighs about almost 500 pounds. And a cubic foot of mortar weighs about 130 pounds. So there you go. If the battleships will float, then the concrete will float. All right.
Can you tell them what they're seeing here?
Pardon?
Can you tell them what's here? What are they looking at?
Oh, they're looking at the side of the ship. You can see all the rebar, rebar, and big, heavy pieces of rebar. Yeah. And these ships provided a great place for birds to nest. So they're very, very beneficial for our ecology.
Anybody who's been to my house will have seen that photo on the wall. It's just old rusty concrete, but it looks like a painting.
See, there's a bird right there. They're in pretty bad shape. And of course, they attract a lot of fish. That's me.
He caught a lot of fish.
And that's my partner and I. We're the guys that building the boat. And I forgot to say this. I'm telling you a story about two young bachelors that had a dream about building a boat and maybe sailing around the world. And you all are riding shotgun. Okay.
I didn't come along until they were this far along with the boat, and that's when my pictures started. But behind you, you see all the wire. Hold up that piece of wire.
Oh yeah, let's go ahead and pass this thing around. This is what the whole boat's made out of, except for the keel, the sides and the top and everything. And this is a mock-up, and I used the wooden dowels and painted them black for the rods, but it's the same, it's the correct size. So this is an actual mock-up of the boat.
Back there, you can see that wire behind him, and that's what this is. And he made this so that y'all could see what they spent a year or two putting together. And I came along after they had gotten this far.
Now, this is a picture of the design of the boat. This is not my boat. And that house is a boat next to it, okay? That's not part of this boat. This boat has a flush deck, okay? And that's the same design, okay? Here's the first thing I bought was a manual, and it had all pictures of all the designs in it, and I picked out a design. And ordered plans. So. Okay, this is probably the most important part of the construction process. This is the lofting. Now, this represents 3 4x8 pieces of plywood with 2x4s fastened to the bottom of them, and they're all fastened together and painted white. Okay, and then we draw a center line, and these lines are called water lines. And the measurements, we got all the measurements from the designer, and we measure out to a certain point on certain water line and put a nail in it. And we do this at each water line all the way up. And then we take a flexible batten and run it around the nails and then draw a line, and that's half of station number 7. Mold number 7. So we had to make 2 of those, and then we had to make, we made 28 of those altogether. Okay, and this is what those pieces look like put together. This is one of those, and then piece there, and the raised deck is made out of 1/2-inch rebar. Okay. And then there's some supporting wires. There's some supporting wires there to hold it in place from overhead. And this is the jack we use to make the pipe, to bend the pipes. I built that. And you roll it along the lofting floor, and you bend it a little bit, and then you roll it a little bit farther, and you bended it a little more until you got the shape that you wanted from the lofting, yeah. Okay. All right, that's the keel, and that's the first thing we built. That's got 6,000 pounds of railroad tracks and railroad spikes in the bottom of it, cemented inside of it. Because I scrounged up most of that stuff. Okay, here's a good drawing here. That's a pipe frame, and that's made out of a piece of black iron pipe that's about almost 1 inch in diameter. And then you have 2 layers of mesh, 2 layers of rods, and 2 more layers of mesh. And you can see that right there. And that's a wire tie that we'll get to that in a minute. Okay. So these are wire ties. The top one is what the guy on the outside pushes through to the guy on the inside. And then the guy on the inside twists it tight to pull everything together. And then he cuts it off, and then he tucks it back into the layup right there in the middle. See where that's tucked back into the space there? So multiply that by 20,000.
How long did it take to do the wire ties?
Oh, well, it took 2 years to build the armature. So that's a picture from the newspaper. And that's a good shot of all the pipe frames set up on top of the keel. You can see the keel on the bottom there. And there's a lot of overhead structure that you'll see in a few minutes. Okay.
It says, when craft is completed, they hope to take it around the world.
Another good shot there. You can see all the wire steel rods, and you can see the mesh right over in here. And that's probably, you got 2 layers of mesh on the inside and 2 layers of rods, and then we're getting ready to put the 2 layers of mesh on the outside. And this is a couple of friends of mine, and they're making, they made 25,000 wire ties, which is just take a piece of wire and bend it in a U shape. Pretty easy. Okay. And that's my partner there on the left. And we're starting to cut mesh. It's 1/2-inch square welded mesh, and it's not galvanized, it's plain steel. And it cuts you up bad. You can see all these little edges. Oh, it's just terrible work. Okay, here's a picture of me. I think we're putting on the final layer of mesh, and this is a piece of stainless steel rod, or this 3/4 inch by 1/4 inch stainless steel, and all the 4.5 rods are welded to it. So it's welded in place. Okay. So somebody's passing wire ties through, and I'm twisting them and cutting them off and so forth and so on. That's a good shot right there. Probably the best shot in the whole thing right there. And that's a bag of wire ties right there next to him. That's pretty good shot. You see these support rods over here next to the ladder there? There's 2 on each frame, and that supports the frame and keeps it in position. Okay. And there's the structure that we built, and we've had to replace the plastic on top of it 4 times. Because it's a 2-year period, you know, that plastic doesn't last very long. That's a pretty good shot. There's a scaffolding that runs all the way around the boat here. And we're still inside. You can see somebody's inside. Yeah. And now, we'll start to.
It was a dark and rainy day, and the guys showed up to make concrete.
You can see we still have new plastic on the roof, and plastic on where they're mixing the cement there. Yeah. Pretty messy. These are go back to that. Can you go back one? Yeah. These are the guys that we helped them build a 94-foot cement boat. And in exchange for that, we were on the inside of that boat with a hose pumping concrete all day long. And for that, they agreed to come help us for free. Come bring their equipment down, their mixer, their stator that just pumped the cement through the hoses, and which is pretty nice of them. So that worked out really, really well. I think we're just starting to pump some concrete. That's not a very good picture.
Jim, maybe you're going to show us, what did you use to hold the concrete in place while it's set up?
The question is, what did he use to hold the concrete in place while it's set up?
Concrete, any good concrete mixture has to have a minimum amount of water, okay? Too much water is bad for concrete. But it has to be thin enough to pump through a hose, and it's got to be thick enough to stay in the mesh. The mesh is what holds the concrete in place.
So there was no external structure or
Nope, this is an open mold. It's not the only way you do it, but this is the easiest way. And so you see, right? Here's the concrete, and the mesh is holding it in place until it just sort of sets up a little teeny bit. Now these guys, let me explain. These two guys on right up there, they're professional plasterers. We hired them out of Baltimore, Maryland, to come down. We had to pay them to come down and smooth out the outside of the boat, put a skim coat on it, so to speak. You wouldn't want it to be much more than 3 or 4 millimeters thick. You know, and after the cement starts to set up a little bit, they'll come along and put that skim coat on there. And they'll keep working it back. And they're professional plasterers, just like they used to plaster walls before they had drywall. Now you can see the cement, and they're already starting to work it a little bit. You see that guy with a big trowel in his hand. That's not a very good picture.
That's inside the boat.
That's inside the boat. That's a best shot of the whole thing right there. And this is the professional. And he's if the cement starts to come out beyond the mesh, he just smooths it out and it stays put. All right, this is the mixing station. And these two guys that are helping us, we help them with their boat. He's got a mixer and a stator. The stator helps pump the cement through hoses. And of course, it rained all day, so we couldn't do it if it rained without all this cover. So we got we've got a bunch of people in there. I can't remember how many people we had on the hose. At least 2 or 3, maybe, I'm not sure.
There's the hose.
Yeah, there's the hose. And you can see there's a pipe frame there, and it's hard to get penetration around that pipe frame. So when you take the pipe frames out, there'll be voids underneath of them. So you have to fill those voids with epoxy grout. That's a good shot right there. That's a really good shot. That's probably the best shot of the whole thing right there. Okay. We're curing the boat now. And what we did was we bought all this burlap. We covered the whole top of the boat with burlap. We put 2 soaker hoses up there. And we didn't have to cover the sides with burlap because the water just kind of runs down the sides like that. And so we did this for a month to cure the boat. That's recommended as a 28-day cure, so it'll reach its maximum strength. It's a picture of me with burns on my knees and my wrists from the lime in the cement. Lime's about 60% lime and cement.
I took him to MCV Hospital Burn Unit.
And that was mainly for infection. They wanted me to put me in this tank of water with all these guys that had burns all over them, and I refused to do it. So anyway, that's a good shot of the boat after it's been cured. And we're putting the motor in. And there's the motor, I don't know if you, motor's right there? Yeah. And this is an A-frame with a come-along. Okay. There's the motor. There's the A-frame. And this is the...
They want to know more about the motor.
Oh, that's a diesel, two-cylinder diesel.
How much did it weigh?
300 or 400 pounds, I guess. There's a really great shot of the motor. Oh, that's beautiful. Now, this is the cockpit well. Okay, this is where you sit on and you put your feet down in the well. Okay. And now we've got her down in place and everybody's very happy. That was a scary job. Well, there's another picture of it right there. That's me right there. That's me. Oh, here's a good picture of the deck. The deck is made out of concrete also. And these are some skylights we built that haven't been installed yet. That's another great picture. Oh, can you go back once? Yeah. This is a test cylinder. You make a bunch of these in 6x12 cardboard tubes, and you cure them inside the boat along with it for a month. Then you take them to a place that crushes them, and to test the pounds per square inch. So those are 6x12, and you take a bunch of them in there and you average it out. I think we got about 6,500 pounds per square inch, which is good. And that's me having a cocktail. And Bob, I don't know what kind of drinks those are. Maybe it's just lemonade. I'm not sure. Looks like lemonade, doesn't it?
They named the boat Karma. This was after we ate the cake to celebrate the concrete being finished.
That's a newspaper article. Good shot of the concrete going on. Another shot. That was in the Richmond Times-Dispatch, I think.
It says, workers slogged their way from the concrete-making machine with buckets of the oozing mess. It was a mess.
It was the biggest mess you ever saw in your life. Now, so I guess I'll talk about this now. 2 years, we thought we'd have the boat in the water in 2 years. But it took 2 years just to build the armature to cement it. And so it took all of our time and all of our money, and we realized that it just wasn't a very realistic thing to keep going with this project. And I met Pam, so, you know, it's hard to get a woman interested in you if you're going to sail off into the sunset. So you can't have relationships when you're doing stuff like this. Okay, This is the cradle of the boat, which I built. It's extra heavy duty, and these are railroad jacks. And what we did was, we jacked the boat up in the air, high enough so a truck, flatbed truck could back up underneath there you go, right there. That's a great picture of the boat. Isn't she pretty? See, it's beautiful. We did a good job on it. Because a lot of
35 feet.
Ferrocement got very unpopular. And the reason is because everybody thought it was cheap and easy. And they did a lousy job. And there was a lot of lousy jobs around, a lot of unfinished jobs. And there she goes. It was sold to a guy in Minneapolis. He sent a truck down. And by the way, we backed that truck underneath the boat so we didn't have to have a crane. Because the crane is heavy and would mess up the yard and all. Now, this actually could be the boat. It's the exact same design, and I just think I lost track of where the boat was, but I think this could actually be the boat. And I know the guys I sold it to, and one of them came by the Eastern Shore once and showed me some pictures which I didn't keep, of the work they were doing on it.
So then, we moved to the Eastern Shore of Virginia.
And it's not connected to Virginia. It's connected to the Eastern Shore of Maryland. So
Down at the tip of the peninsula is the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, those lines.
and they've got two spans, but they all go through one tunnel, which means that you have opposing traffic in one tunnel. So now they're building another tunnel, which they're using a boring machine. It's 42 foot in diameter, the cutter head of the machine. So they're boring, that's what everybody's doing now, is boring tunnels.
He built the concrete boat in Richmond, but then we moved to Berkeley Plantation on the James River west of Williamsburg, and that's where we were living when we moved to the Eastern Shore of Virginia. And we moved to the Eastern Shore of Virginia because Jim wanted to build boats.
But I didn't want to build cement boats.
You're going to see them now.
Roughly how much did the finish?
This is,
He'd like to know how much did the finished concrete ship weigh?
well, just the hull and the motor and the keel and the ballast was about 20,000 pounds, about 10 tons. This is a 35-foot fiberglass sailboat that we built. That's working on the inside of it. Okay, this is a good shot. We build a male mold, a plug as they call them, and this is contoured rigid foam. And what it is, it's foam cut into thousands of little 2-inch square and held together with a scrim. There's a scrim on the other side of that keeps all the little blocks in place. And so this, go back one time. And this is all fastened through the wood mold from inside, okay? So we put all the fiberglass on the outside of it, and then we turn it over and fiberglass the inside of it. That's a good shot of the rigid foam, contoured foam, yeah, good shot there. And there's a picture of the boat.
They built that boat for an artist named Henry Peacock. I think he lives on the Eastern Shore of Maryland.
Okay, this is replica of the ship's boat for the Godspeed, which came over to Jamestown in 1607 with 2 other boats. And they built a replica of the Godspeed, and they wanted us to build a replica of the ship's boat, which they would use, and when they anchored, a few guys would get in and row over the shore and check it out. So that's it. That's inside. That's just a wooden form inside of it. And all the frames are steam bent. We had a steam box, and the oak frames would stay in a steam box for about half an hour. We'd pull them out and bend them into place. And there you see all the frames. It's all copper fastened with copper rows. And that's a lee board, called a lee board. And those are, okay. That's me right there, I think. So it's basically a little sailboat, rowboat. It's probably about 10 or 12 feet long. It's not very big. That's another good shot of it there. And so the oars, these are called thole pins. You see them sticking up out of the gunnel there? That's where the oar goes. They didn't have oar locks back then. So you put the oar in the oar lock into the thole pins. Okay. There's another picture of it. Now, I was just an apprentice. It takes years and years to be a master shipwright. And there's not many places to learn the trade except in New England, Maine, and New England. So there we're loading her up. This is fiberglass 40-foot boat that we built, but we bought the hull, or the owner bought the hull and brought it to us. And it's just a bare hull, nothing inside of it, nothing out. You just see there's nothing in it. So we had to finish the boat off, put the motor in, finish the cabin, do the whole inside of the boat. And there I am sitting on the side of the boat there. Here, we're putting her in the water. Now you can see the straps, and you can see a spreader going across the top there with 2 spreaders, one on each end, and then the straps that go underneath the boat.
I got a story for this one. We lived 2 miles from a little town called Onancock, which had about 1,000 people. And I was in a hurry to get to the harbor in Quinby to photograph the boat going in the water, and I got stopped for speeding in downtown Onancock. And the cop comes over and he says, "Why are you in such a big hurry?" I said, "Oh, they're putting Nick Nakunis's boat in the water in Quinby, and I got to be there to photograph it." He said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll give you a escort." Because he wanted to see it go in the water too. No ticket.
And there's Nick in the middle of those 2 guys there in the white hat there. He's the owner, the ex-Coast Guard chief. And he's going to use this boat for flounder fishing, mostly inside the barrier islands, between the mainland and the barrier islands.
He used it as a workboat for a long time, but somebody else owns it now, and I think it's being used as a tour boat now.
This little 9-foot skiff that we built for a customer. This is a 18-foot seaside skiff. That's probably built in the 20s or 30s. And we took all the measurements off of that boat and built this boat, which is made out of fiberglass. Okay, this is a skiff that I worked on. This is the first one I did all by myself. Nobody helped me with this one, so I was able to do that myself. She's made out of Atlantic white cedar, and everybody calls that stuff juniper. It's aromatic. It's similar to red cedar, but it's a different smell. but it's not red cedar.
This boat was built for Dr. Armstrong, who's the gentleman who's
Yeah,
on the
there's
right.
Dr. Armstrong. He's a radiologist. That's a good shot of the boat right there. That's a real good shot. And it's got a removable seat back for his wife. His wife didn't want to sit there without a seat back. So that seat back can be removed. There's a seat back right there. Yeah. And that's Dr. Armstrong, his son, and his son's daughter. And they're the first ones that ever got in the boat besides me. Oh, and this is a half model I did of a log canoe. It's 45 inches long. And it's just, the sole purpose of a half boat is to just show the lines of the hull itself. And the boat builders would take lifts, maybe an inch thick, and they would put all these lifts together, and they'd carve the boat out like that. Then they pull the lifts apart, and they could make measurements on each lift, and they could build a real boat from a model boat. That's how they did it. But that was just one solid piece of wood, one made in lifts. Now that's Pam right there. And that's Raven, a black lab.
Is that Dr. Armstrong's boat?
Yeah, well, this is a picture of it after he globbed on all that teak oil inside of it.
This is something Jim's been working on for many years, and we packed it up and brought it with us to Burlington, and it's in our garage. And he'll tell you about it, but we're hoping to do a test run in the swimming pool one day.
Yeah, it's a turn of the century steam cargo ship. And
It'll be operated by remote control, right?
and I made the whole thing up and scratch built it. I didn't have any plans for it or anything. And it's got an electric motor in it, and it's got a servo to operate the rudder, and a servo to turn on the motor. And the radio, of course, which you...
What do you call these right here?
Cow vents.
What is it?
Cow vents.
Cow vent?
To
Vents.
circulate air inside the boat.
I have a story about the cow vents. He wanted to go to Hobby Lobby one day, and he bought plastic Easter eggs. And I'm like, what are these for? He made the vents out of the Easter eggs.
Well, they came apart. That's it.
Any questions?
Anybody got any questions?
I have a microphone so the folks watching at home can hear. Thank you.
Jim, how much do you think it cost you to make that concrete boat hull? How much do you think you spent on it?
How much did you spend making the concrete boat?
How much money?
Money, yes.
In 1976, probably $12,000
That's not too bad.
to get it as far as we got it. But you have to remember, building the hull of a boat is probably only 20 or 25% of the total cost of the boat, because you get all the other stuff, the mast and sails and rigging, and it's just, it never ends. So, and we had tanks in the bottom of the boat. We had a water tank below the sole, a fuel tank, and a small tank for rum.
So my question is similar. When you started the concrete boat, did you know you had a buyer?
When you started the concrete boat, did you know you had a buyer?
Oh, no, we were planning on finishing it.
Well, did you have a lot of money between you all just to start, or did you borrow? How did that work?
Did you and Bob have a lot of money?
Nope. And what, the money we did have, we both had jobs, of course. The money we did have went into this project. So we couldn't even take our girlfriends out to dinner. We had no money. This engulfed our entire life, this project.
I was wondering, Jim, when you first decided to build a concrete, why did you choose concrete and not wood? Why didn't you build a wooden boat?
Okay, I can tell you a good story. Everybody, concrete boats started in Australia, New Zealand, moved to Canada, United Kingdom. It got very popular in the early mid-'70s and that, maybe late '60s and early to mid-'70s. Got very popular. And the reason was because there was a lot of would-be sailors that wanted to go sailing. And this particular technique is cheap. You buy a bunch of mesh, wire mesh, you buy a bunch of steel rods, and you buy some cement, and you take it out and you find a place to build it in your backyard somewhere, and then you invite all your friends over on a weekend with plenty of beer and that's
Peanuts.
they made it sound like it was just so easy to do. But obviously, and there was a lot of really, really bad boats built. A lot of these boats were built on a male mold, okay? A male mold. And a male mold was fairly easy to make because it didn't have to be perfect. And they covered that with plastic. And they'd start stapling on the mesh, and then staple the rods on and staple on more mesh. And it was easy. I mean, that was really easy. But then you had to get a crane, turn the thing over, take all the wood out, and grind off all the ends of the staples. So, this was the easier way to do it.
Jim, does the concrete have a life expectancy with the steel rods and
Well, I
and
think
the
you
mesh?
saw that in the beginning with the.
That's why I was asking. Yeah. Well, they've been sitting there, so the
Well,
concrete was chipping off.
What you do is you use a thin penetrating epoxy, and you cover the cement with that. And hopefully that'll keep any penetration from salt water getting into the boat. So yeah, if it's properly cared for, just like a car, if you take care of it, it'll last a long time. And she'll go anywhere. She'll go anywhere in the world. No question about that.
Any questions?
Well, you never got to go around the world.
Almost. In an airplane. Here. I got it.
Yeah, Jim, I had a question about, you mentioned earlier you had, I guess, sheet plywood. Was that used for, like a mold, or what was the plywood used for that
You mentioned using plywood in something.
I did?
Was it in the concrete or was that in the other boats?
He said,
Oh, yeah, in the drawings at the beginning, you mentioned something about
Oh,
plywood.
yeah, the lofting board was made out of plywood. 3 of them hooked together with 2x4s underneath them, and then painted white. And if you didn't do that, you couldn't build a boat. There's just no way you could do it.
yeah, I'm confused about the lofting. I had not heard of that term before. What does that mean?
And that's the most important thing. And actually, we lofted the cross sections of the boat.
Can you explain what lofting means?
Well, I showed them taking that flexible batten.
We don't understand it.
Taking the flexible batten and taking the measurement off the center line out to those water lines and making a little dot. And the architect gives you all the measurements, because he took the measurements off of a real boat that was built. So without the table of offsets and measurements and so forth, you couldn't do it. But there's 3 ways you can loft a boat. We just did the cross sections, but you're also supposed to loft the profile of the boat from the side, which goes like that. You're also supposed to profile the boat from the top. We didn't do that. So we got lucky. We got real lucky. That's one of the best examples of ferrocement I've ever seen, if I do say so myself. Well,
You use that to get the shape of the hull. That you put them in, you run it between the wire and everything between those that are cut to give you the shape, the mold to, I guess.
The lofting and the wood, that helped you get the shape.
well, yeah, and each frame had to be lofted. One half of the frame. And you saw one that we lofted that one. That was, and then we had 13 other lines drawn on the same board. So we had 14 different lines on this one board. Each one was a different station. And so, so like I said before, we had to make 28 half frames or 14 four frames all hooked together and, you know. Yeah. Yeah, concrete and steel.
Okay, Jim, I have a question.
Oh, that's all, okay. Well, concrete and steel has pretty much the same rate of expansion and contraction, so they work real well together. There's all these buildings, all these skyscrapers you see are made out of the same thing, steel rebar and concrete. Every skyscraper that's ever been built, pretty much, is how they build them.
Hey, Jim. Jim, it's Ronnie. Jim, over here.
Oh,
Okay.
Ronnie.
Hey there. Okay, you're going to go around the world in this boat, right?
That was its plan.
Okay, but what did the inside look like? I mean,
Well,
did you have beds in
You
there,
have
a kitchen?
You made bulkheads, okay, maybe three bulkheads inside the boat, some deck beams. You had a galley, you had a head, you had a forward area with berths in it, and then you had
Okay.
settee berths in the middle of the boat.
Have TV?
TV? No, we're trying to get away from that. And we didn't have cell phones then. So all we had was a compass, a compass, a sextant, and a flashlight.
Oh, wow.
So did you learn from the man that bought it how it sailed? Did he sail, he
I lost
let you
track
know
of it.
anything?
I lost track of the boat.
Oh,
I shouldn't have, but I
so
did.
you didn't.
And I'm assuming that if he did finish it, he sailed it down the Mississippi River into the Gulf of Mexico, because Minneapolis, St. Paul is right on the Mississippi River.
The
Runs
last
right
time
through
we
it.
knew anything about the boat was in the early 1980s, before computers, before email, before cell phones. There was, like, you know, we lost track of the guy. Well, we'd love to, and we joined a group on Facebook for Ferrocement boat owners, and I posted pictures of the boat being built and asked if anybody ever ran into this guy to let us know. We don't know.
What happened to your partner?
What happened to Bob Latham, your concrete partner?
He's not doing very well right now. So he lives in Richmond, and he's had some health issues. I was supposed to go up and see him this month, actually, but waiting for him to get a little better. He was in the real estate business, and he didn't get married until he was 77, 78 years old. That's true.
That's true. He was a late bloomer.
He's a handsome guy. He was a handsome guy.
I guess I came between them. Any other quick question?
had the pleasure of living across the street of the two of these people. Okay. We had the pleasure of living across the street from these two fun and young, and we got to see him working on some miniature boats.
What was that, Pam? Did you hear that?
Yeah, she said she got to see you in the garage working on that small boat.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And you said there were people near here that actually used those boats to compete with one another.
Yeah, at Twin Lakes, they have a club there that use the radio-controlled boats. They have a lot of ponds there, and they put them in the ponds and race them and stuff. And I understand there's also a group at Elon University that does little small boats in a pond there. And he's got to make sure the one he's built floats. So that's why I suggested the swimming pool.
I've got another sailboat under construction. This is actually the mast. You see it's tapered on one end, pretty. So and that's radio controlled also. The guys at Twin Lakes, they sail East Coast 12-meter boats. They're sailboats, and they're 5 feet long, fiberglass. They have like a 12, 14-pound keel hooked underneath them. Or actually, the keel on is actually put it on the inside. And so I was planning on doing that. We were planning on going to Twin Lakes, but glad we didn't. They never called us, and after 2 years. Glad we didn't.
We're glad we're glad we found out about Brookwood.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. That went great, Jim.
It worked out, yeah.
Good.
Oh, okay.
Ready to build one?